why you keep waiting to feel ready, and how that's ruining your life. You're not stuck because you don't know what to do. You're stuck because you're waiting to feel ready, and that feeling isn't coming. Not because you're broken, not because you lack discipline, not because you need more healing, insight, or preparation, but because readiness is not something you access before action. It's something your nervous system releases after you've survived exposure. And every day you wait for it, your life quietly contracts. You delay the conversation. You delay the decision. You delay the risk. You delay becoming who you already know you need to be. And the most dangerous part? Waiting doesn't feel like fear. It feels responsible. It feels thoughtful. It feels mature. But it's not. It's avoidance with better language. The readiness myth. Most people live by a rule they never consciously chose. Once I feel ready, I'll act. They believe readiness comes from confidence, emotional calm, certainty, perfect timing, reduced anxiety, a clearer plan. So they wait. They wait for the nerves to settle. They wait for the doubt to disappear. They wait for the moment to feel safer. And while they wait, nothing changes. Because life does not reward hesitation. It rewards participation. And participation rarely feels comfortable first. What feeling ready actually is. Let's be precise. Feeling ready is not clarity. It's not courage. It's not alignment. It's nervous system permission. Your body asking, have I survived something like this before? If the answer is no, readiness doesn't appear. Instead, your system produces tension, hesitation, anxiety, doubt, overthinking. And you interpret that sensation as, I'm not ready yet. But what you're actually feeling is lack of evidence. Your nervous system hasn't seen proof you can do this and remain intact. So it withholds the green light, not to sabotage you, to protect you. The brain doesn't care about your goals. Your brain's job is not to help you become fulfilled. Its job is to keep you alive, which means it prioritizes familiarity over growth, predictability over possibility, comfort over expansion. So when you consider doing something new, setting a boundary, speaking honestly, taking a risk, showing yourself, ending something familiar, your system scans for certainty. If certainty is missing, it generates resistance. And resistance gets rebranded as wisdom. Why readiness never comes first. Here's the rule most people never learn. Readiness follows action. It never precedes it. Confidence doesn't create movement. Movement creates confidence. Clarity doesn't unlock decisions. Decisions generate clarity. Self-trust doesn't appear through thinking. It forms through follow-through. Every time you act before feeling ready and survive, your body records, I can do this, and stay intact. That record becomes trust. But if you wait, your system records something else. Avoidance prevents discomfort, and avoidance gets reinforced as safety. Why waiting feels so convincing? Waiting feels smart. It gives you temporary relief, reduced anxiety, a sense of control, the illusion of preparation. Your body relaxes, and that relaxation feels like the right decision. But relief is not direction. Calm is not alignment. Waiting doesn't mean you chose wisely. It means you avoided exposure. The subtle damage waiting does. Waiting doesn't look destructive. That's why it's dangerous. It doesn't create chaos. It creates stagnation. You don't collapse dramatically. You shrink quietly. You stop initiating. You stop experimenting. You stop tolerating uncertainty. And eventually your world becomes small enough to manage, but too small to satisfy. That's when people say, I don't feel like myself anymore. They didn't lose themselves. They withdrew. Why smart, self-aware people struggle most? If you're intelligent, reflective, emotionally literate, you're at higher risk because you can rationalize delay beautifully. You call it processing, integration, healing, timing, strategy, self-care. But here's the truth. Insight without exposure becomes avoidance. Understanding becomes a substitute for action. You analyze fear instead of confronting it. You explain patterns instead of interrupting them. You intellectualize growth instead of participating in it. And because thinking feels productive, the delay feels justified. But your body doesn't learn from explanations, it learns from experience. When processing becomes a loop, processing has an endpoint. It moves toward resolution, decision, action. Overthinking does not. Overthinking recycles the same questions, amplifies doubt, avoids finality, postpones exposure. If you've been processing the same decision for months, you're not processing, you're looping. And loops exist for one reason: to delay action. How waiting destroys self-trust. Every time you say, I'll do it later, and don't, your nervous system learns this person doesn't follow through. That creates internal instability because authority doesn't come from intention, it comes from consistency. So your body starts questioning you, not out of weakness, out of experience. Anxiety increases, hesitation grows, overthinking escalates. Not as punishment, as protection. Why you feel more anxious over time. Waiting doesn't calm anxiety long term, it amplifies it. Because your system senses unresolved threats. Avoided actions remain open loops. Your mind keeps revisiting them because closure never occurred. That's why overthinkers feel exhausted without doing anything. Their system never gets completion. The real cost of waiting doesn't just delay outcomes, it erodes momentum, identity, confidence, agency. You don't just postpone actions, you postpone becoming. Years don't disappear through dramatic failure. They disappear through hesitation, through almost, through maybe later, through I'll think about it. And the longer you wait, the harder it feels to start. Not because the task changed, but because your nervous system learned avoidance. Why feeling ready is not maturity. People confuse emotional maturity with comfort. They think maturity means feeling calm first, being regulated before acting, resolving fear in advance. That's backwards. Real regulation is the ability to act while dysregulated without collapsing. Maturity isn't avoiding discomfort, it's tolerating it. If you wait to feel calm before you move, you train fragility. If you move while anxious, you build capacity. Action is not confidence. Action is participation. Confidence is not required. Willingness is willingness to be misunderstood, feel awkward, risk failure, lose control. Confidence is the memory of survival. And that memory only forms one way: by doing the thing before you feel ready. The moment fear loses authority. Fear doesn't disappear when you grow, it loses influence. The shift happens when you stop treating fear as a decision maker. Fear can exist, but movement happens anyway. That's not recklessness, that's adulthood. A rule that collapses waiting. Here's a rule that works better than most practices. If you've thought about it more than twice, act. Not perfectly, not confidently, just move. Because thinking past a certain point stops being preparation. It becomes avoidance. Movement collapses loops. Exposure ends rumination. Action gives your nervous system evidence. What to do when you don't feel ready. When readiness doesn't appear, and it won't, do this instead. Ask, what am I avoiding feeling? What's the smallest version of action? What does participation look like today? Then do that. Messy, imperfect, human. Because momentum doesn't require mastery, it requires initiation. Why this feels harder than it should? This feels hard because you were taught to wait for confidence. You were rewarded for compliance. You learned to associate safety with stillness. But growth doesn't happen in safety. It happens in self-directed exposure. Every avoided action reinforces fear. Every completed action weakens it. The identity shift. Identity isn't formed through intention. It's formed through repetition. Who you are is what you do when it's uncomfortable. Each time you act without readiness, you vote for a new identity. Each time you wait, you reinforce the old one. Final truth. Read this slowly. You don't need to feel ready. You need to act while unready. Because readiness is a reward, not a requirement. And every time you wait for it, you teach your nervous system to hide. Every time you move without it, you teach your nervous system, I can do hard things and remain intact. That's not motivation. That's not mindset. That's not confidence. That's self-trust. And that's what actually changes your life. Thank you for watching. This is MindStickz.